All right. Hi, everybody. My name is Maiken. I'm super happy to be here today. I am a former student at the TCLoc program, and I will present the findings I did in my master thesis. And let's just jump into it. So, first of all, let me show you what I'll talk about here. You'll get a quick introduction to the case study I did in my thesis. You'll see a quick recap of the theories, a bit about TimeLog, which is the company I work in, and they were you can say, the main data source in my case study. There will be some recommendations, reflections, and then as a cherry on top, I'll give you some information about how I have taken the findings I did in the thesis and put it into the work I do with the help documentation. So let's just jump right into it. And just to give you a brief introduction to TimeLog so you know which company we're talking about here. TimeLog is a professional services automation software provider that includes time tracking, project management, invoicing, and resource management. So depending on how big a company you have, then you can use it for a lot of things and get a lot of your business processes documented in this way. We have been in business since 2001. And we're now more than 100 employees. We have more than 1,000 customers. We have more than 30,000 daily users. And we have offices in 3 countries. And I have included some links in the presentation. So afterwards, you can go back and read more if you like. So let's jump into the thesis and all the cool stuff that I've done here. I'll tell you a bit about the what, the why, and the how. So what I did was a case study to find out how we can take the user feedback and actually affect the software development cycle and improve the product. I did it because at the time there was an increased focus on usability and user needs in general. And we wanted to move from a product to a more customer-oriented focus in everything we did. And we could also see in the customer satisfaction measurements that we did that we really needed to make some changes. So that's what we did. And how I went about my thesis was from a philosophical framework point of view. I used social constructivism because we shape reality through interactions and language. And I know a lot of us work with language and know the importance of actually choosing the right words for the communication situation that we're in. But that can't stand alone. So of course I had some empirical data as well. I did some personal interviews to find more information about processes, how we did things in the past, what we do now, what the plans for the future are. I also talked to a customer to get the other side of the story, you can say, and some different perspectives. And of course, I included a lot of academic research articles in my thesis. Good. Those words, we jump into the quick recap of the theories. And first things first, software development lifecycle. I'm not sure how many of you actually work with software development, so I will just quickly take you through what's it about here. And in the life cycle, you have 6 stages, starting at the top. So we do the planning. Then we have the defining, finding out, okay, what is it we want to do? We do the design phase, then we build. Then we test what we have done. Does it work as intended? And then we put it out to our users. Then within software development, there are so many frameworks that you can actually use. And I have focused on waterfall and agile development because that's what TimeLog has worked with. And in waterfall, you have pretty much the same stages as you saw before, but you have to sort of complete one before you can move on to the next. And it therefore can take a lot of time before you're actually able to put something out to your users that they can use in the system. Whereas in agile development, you also do the same, but you do it in smaller iterations. In TimeLog, we have 3-week sprints. So one sprint is a 1 iteration. And we do this all the time. So every time we have a sprint, we aim to put something out that the users can actually take into use right away, so they don't need to wait for the big bang releases as we've seen in the past. Good. Move on to the interesting part. So the feedback. And first of all, we need to find out how do we collect the feedback and how do we involve the users. And I found this great article where they talk about a lot of things that actually affect the way that we do the feedback collection. One thing is degree of degree of autonomy. So the freedom we have to actually participate when we want to. Then there's the number of users. So how many people do we get to interact and talk to and get feedback from? And then the level of collaboration. So how easy is it? How much do people participate and such things? Then when we do this feedback collection, we also need to take the barriers for participation into use. So how can we make it as easy as possible for people to participate on their own terms? So we need to find a way to put it into the system where it makes sense, make it easy to participate, and of course, offer assistance when it's needed. Good. Then we move on to the analysis, because when we have gathered a lot of feedback, we also need to find out how to group it and put it into boxes so we can work with it and actually improve the product. And in another article, I found some suggestions as to how this can be done. And one way is sorting things into this discussion of same issue. So we make a box here, everything that's about the same issue, we put in this box. Then we could have another box of saying, how do people actually communicate? Are they happy? Are they sad? Are they angry in their communication? That could be another box. And a third box could be the type of feedback we get. So is this related to colors in the system? Is it related to language? Is it related to the way we have built the page? That could also be a box. And once we have done all the boxing, you can say, we need to monitor to see when we do changes, do we then still see the same feedback, or does it change over time? Good. That was the quick recap of the theories. Now we move into how things were in TimeLog at the time. And since I did the case study, we have actually done a lot of changes. So it was 2 years ago that I wrote it. And right at the beginning, as I handed in, we had some releases that did not go as planned, and we needed to sort of increase our focus on our current customer base. And we went into a hypercare and stability stage where we spent, I think, 3 or 4 months actually going through the system area by area and eliminating a lot of bugs that we had at the time. In addition, in the last part of 2020, we got an investor. And last year we hired 30 new colleagues, and so far this year we have done the same. So it's been a crazy ride, and there are many great things going on in TimeLog at the time. What we also saw when we hired so many new people, we saw a need to actually dive a little deeper in, you can say, the domain and product training. So we took out 7 or 8 days where we just dive deep into what is it that we do, what are the needs for our customers, which customers do we attend to, and then taking the important areas in the system one by one. And it actually gave a lot of great knowledge share and a lot of energy and important knowledge for all colleagues. So everyone in the company were in there, no matter if they have been in the company for a week or 10 years. Good. Now let's take a look at some of the history here and how development was done before and how it's done today. So before, it was the waterfall method, and it was actually the customer with the loudest voice that got their wishes through. And we also at the same time saw that some promises were made in sales where maybe they told that the system could do something that it really couldn't, and that put a lot of pressure on our developers to actually change their plans and then focus on delivering what was promised in the sales processes. That we have scrapped, and now we work in a more structured approach. We are agile development through Scrum. We don't have any big customer projects anymore. We have stopped all customer-specific development, and now it's the market needs that determine which projects we take and do, and the wishes that we get from our users. Which leads us to the user feedback. And I think in this aspect, it's important to know that everything we do in TimeLog is linked to our values, which are listen, understand, and contribute. So if we don't listen to our customers and we don't understand what their challenges are, well, then we can't contribute with a good solution to actually solve them. So everything we do is centered around these 3 values. Then, of course, we have a lot of input channels. And we see our users actually, you can say, target us from different angles. And we take all this feedback and collect it and put it into perspective, you can say. Then when you have a system like ours, the users, of course, also have some expectations, and they want a state-of-the-art PSA system to solve all their business challenges, you can say. They want high-quality support, so when they are in need of help, then they get it fast, quick, and in high quality. There are different demands. So if you look at a business-to-business product and a business-to-consumer product, you have different expectations. And we really see that as we do business-to-business. And when you are responsible for your company, you have different glasses on when you look at these things. And then, of course, people want a nice design, easy-to-use system, and it should all make sense when they go into the different pages. Good. What we did at the time was to develop a customer input model and go from the product to the customer focus and have more focus on our users. And we did this model back then, and I think most of the things are self-explanatory, but the thing I want to go a bit more into depth with is the TCAP. So if you imagine a big yellow taxi in New York, you can fit a few people into that taxi, right? We do the same in the TimeLog TCAP, and the TCAP stands for TimeLog Customer Attention Board. And you go into the attention board if you are an unhappy customer. Maybe you said something in the customer satisfaction surveys where we need to have extra focus on you as a customer. Then you go into the TCAP. You're also in the TCAP if you run a longer and more thorough implementation process. So everybody knows, okay, what's going on now with this customer. And at any given time, any time logger could go in and have a look at the attention board to see who is in there. So if I talk to somebody, I know that I need to take it into consideration. What we also found out during the input model stage was that people were a bit dissatisfied with the way we put out new features. So we did like Microsoft, they have it. We do now preview features. So every time we have something big that changes a lot of processes, we put it in a preview feature so our users can turn it on and off as they like. And the companies can now decide when they want to take specific things into use. Let's take a look at the recommendations. So what I recommended back at that time was that we should, of course, group the input for analysis, find the right channels, and also react in time. So when people actually gave us the feedback, we should also be better at getting back to them and say, oh, thank you very much. We are taking this into considerations. I also want to share some of my reflections because after I handed in, I got a lot of new ideas. A lot of things went through my mind working with this. And when you are in a place where things change, you also need to change your processes and maybe come up with new ideas to actually make that happen. And some of the things I came up with after the hand-in was to re-implement Scrum. So go back to actually basics, you can say, and re-implement the basic things that we did in the agile development. I also suggested a change of product owners to get some new ideas in and new blood, you can say, because many of the product owners who were in the company at the time had been there for a long time and maybe couldn't see the benefit of adding some of that new feedback we got in. The next thing was to have a specific feature request process, and we actually implemented this quite fast after and now use Product Board, which is a software where we can collect all the feedback and put it into boxes and rate them and say, okay, this is more important because it got more votes from the users, and that's a super important tool for us now. And of course, we should have more customer dialogues. So what then happened was that we did a new setup in R&D. Actually, we now move it to the entire company where we will work in, you can say, vertical teams, where not only the development teams, but also we'll also have people from sales, marketing, consulting, customer success will be in each vertical team. So we'll have one for management consultants, one for architects, one for engineers, and so forth. So in each team, there will be a representative from each, you can say, internal team in TimeLog, taking the user perspective with us in what we do here. We also did a rethinking of product management and actually hired a lot of new people. So we now have specific UX and UI designers for each vertical teams. We have digital adoption designers, and we work across teams to support in all the help needs, the user guidance in the system, best practice documentation, everything around help in the product. And that's what we do to move to support more than one industry. So I promised you a cherry on top, and here it is. So let's jump into the documentation processes and how we actually take the user feedback and improve the help. And we see a lot of things coming in, a lot of input where we can actually, with pretty small changes, make a big impact. And one of the things we do is via support tickets. So every time there's a help page in TimeLog, the users have the option at the button to rate, okay, was it good or was it bad? And they can add a comment. And when they hit the submit feedback button, then it turns into a support ticket in our ticket management system. And our supporters can take a look to see, okay, is this a support question related to the processes, or is it something we should improve in the help? And then if it's for the help, it gets assigned to me and I can take a look and see what I can do. Then we have structured feedback gathering via surveys directly in the system. So we can set up via a software we use called WalkMe. We can set up a lot of things. And actually last year I did a survey to find out how they use the help and which personas they are. And I found out a lot of valuable information here that we can use in the communication to our users, not only for us in the digital adoption team, but actually also for the people that are in marketing and in customer success. And most interestingly was the people just ask their colleagues for help when they need it. So they don't use our help that much. So it could be a good thing, it could be a bad thing. We're still working on the details here to find out how we can better support the users here. Then we can also do user behavior analysis. So we can take a look at all the guides that we set up to support them and clicking around the system. We can actually see where they fall off. Which is important for us. It can tell us that the guide we did wasn't good enough, or maybe the user interface that we did is too complex. So we can take that knowledge and actually make improvements both in the guides but also in the system to support this. And what I also like about the user behavior analysis and the options we have through WalkMe is that we can also get an overview of where are our users and how many users do we have where. And this is just a snapshot from the statistics that show the use and where we have the most users. And we are based in Denmark and started here many years ago. So you can see Denmark is dark blue, and Sweden is a bit darker than the rest of the world. And those two markets are also the key markets that we target. So it makes sense that we have a darker coloring in those areas. And then based on the feedback that we have received also in the survey that we did, we have made some strategic changes as well. So we now change the online help that we offer and add new formats and slide guides. So everything we do will look the same, so they get a more coherent experience, and we'll also change the design so it matches what we do in the system. And then we have a video project coming up later this year, because we could see in the survey we did that people really want to watch the videos, and we need to find a structured approach to actually do this. Oh, that brings us till the end, and I just want to remind you of what I just told you the past minutes here. So we had a bit of a talk about the customer-centered approach that TimeLog does now, the development methodologies, the feedback collection analysis, so the theoretical part. Then we took a look at how it went back then, and well, it never goes as planned, right? That we need some new ideas and new processes. And then I just told you a bit about how we use feedback in the help documentation. And that brings us to the end and to the questions. And just for you to know, when you get the slides afterwards, you have some links to the resources. So if you want to read the articles and go more in depth, you can always do that. And feel free to reach out to me at any time if you have any questions. I'll be happy to help and answer. Thank you very much.